Hey guys, welcome to the Mike Dolce Knows channel. Thank you for being here as I record from my home office, which I'm now turning into a second podcast studio so I can report in near real time fight results, breaking news, morning updates, and other things I don't have to schlep my tail into the studio to do for you. So hopefully this channel will continue to bring you even better content as we progress. Now, today, I want to discuss the Mind Pump radio team and their conversation regarding cardio not being optimal to lose fat. You might remember recently I did a video responding to Dr. Mike Isratel from RP Renaissance, RP Strength, Dr. Mike Isratel. Sorry, Doc. I did a video because Dr. Isratel said something very similar, that cardio is not optimal for fat loss. Well, now the Mind Pump guys are saying cardio is not optimal for fat loss. When we here at the Dolce Diet and Fitness, we say cardio is an amazing way to lose fat, not just in short term, but long term. So who's right? Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you who's right or who's wrong. What I wanted to do is respectfully share our views and compare them to the views of other credible, well-intended experts. I like the guys at Mind Pump. I like Dr. Mike. They're all credible. They have good points. So now, for the sake of public discourse, let me explain my thoughts so you, the viewer, you can actually consider all sides and do what's best for you. So the Mind Pump guys answered a viewer question in which one of their viewers, a new personal trainer, said basically he's confused. He wants to lose weight. He wants to get shredded. He wants to look good for his job and for life. But cardio really confuses him. And the Mind Pump guys basically came on and said, listen, cardio is not necessary for fat loss. And in fact, cardio shouldn't be used for fat loss. They did say that 30 minutes of cardio a few times a week is good for overall health, but it's not optimal for fat loss. This is similar to what Dr. Mike Isratel had said in that video response that I put out a few weeks ago. Go and check that out. Dr. Isratel had said, if you want to embark on a fat loss program, it is much harder to perform cardiovascular activity consistently than it is to reduce your calories. Well, I felt that was wrong. So let me first deal with Dr. Mike's points, share my own, and then I'll go back to the Mind Pump guys. Dr. Mike felt that it's harder to do cardio consistently than it is to drop calories. I disagree, because people are hungry all the time. People are always prone to binging and to cheating. People will eat. They want to eat. They're faced with food options constantly. It's much easier for someone to dedicate themselves. In my experience, 20 plus years working at the greatest levels with the world's greatest athletes, and also with a robust direct-to-consumer business, working with millions of regular folks around the world through our books and podcasts and videos and online membership platform, and all the other touch points that we've had. We've had dramatic success with people who follow our principles. I'm not saying ours are the best, but they are freaking extremely effective, and nobody can discount the success that we've had and our system has had. So take that as anecdotal evidence, if you will, but just know it's very well supported by evergreen, peer-reviewed, scientific evidence also. To Dr. Mike's point, we found it is much easier for regular folks to commit to a 30-minute exercise or 30-minute cardiovascular, because exercise can be discussed in a few different ways, as the Mind Pump boys do, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So we'll just talk about cardio here. It's very easy to perform 30 minutes of cardiovascular activity once it becomes a habit. At this point in my life and the lives of many of my clients, it's just what we do. 30 minutes of cardio on the elliptical or walking the boardwalk, well, that's just what we do. It's like brushing my teeth in the morning, right? So once we can, and best practices, and I think this is where my point of differentiation maybe will come into play. We really look for best practices. And I believe A cardiovascular routine consistently applied is a best practice for those who are seeking long-term body composition, health, fitness, and athletic outcomes. So to Dr. Mike's point that it's easier to reduce calories than it is to stay consistent to an exercise program, well, I just don't agree with that. Maybe he's seen results with that. I've never seen results with that because people will cheat, they will binge, they will eat foods that they probably shouldn't. But also, to address both points, if we do drop calories, when we do drop calories, we reduce calories. And what happens? And the Mind Pump boys mentioned this, we drop calories, well, the metabolism slows down, which means we plateau, we stop losing fat, we stop losing weight. And what happens? We now have to drop calories again. The more we drop calories, the less nutrients we consume. The less nutrients consumed, the more prone we are to a series of deficiencies. The more deficiencies we manifest through caloric reduction, the less our systems work. Now, we take the approach of all humans are nothing more than cellular organisms, and that's the way we step into the river of fitness. Number one, the first step is you are a cellular organism. Therefore, we must sustain cellular activity at the highest level. Slowly from there, we start to build out more protocols that will address macronutrient ratios and total caloric thresholds. And then we can get into more advanced calorie carb cycling and other ways to modify body composition, not including exercise modalities. So to the Mind Pump guys basically said, similar to Dr. Mike, that cardio is unsustainable. And I just don't get that. I don't get that. I don't see that. In fact, I find it very easy to sustain cardiovascular activity, especially when on our programs, our first step is not to reduce calories. Our first step is to increase calories. Because just as when we lower calories, the metabolic rate lowers, when we increase calories, the metabolism actually increases also. That is the holy grail of fat loss, which is what the Mind Pump boys alluded to in that they felt strength training and building muscle was a better way of burning body fat. Although if you're strength training while reducing calories, building muscle becomes nearly impossible, losing muscle becomes highly likely, and as the calories continue to drop, so do the vital micronutrients that are no longer able to fulfill cellular activity, making muscular contraction and repair and regeneration nearly impossible. Again, our goal is to increase total calories consumed, but only from high net nutrient healthful whole foods. We don't believe in hyper palatable, highly processed synthetic foods like many other in the fitness worlds agree. I don't know if Dr. Mike or the Mind Pump boys do any of that stuff. I know others like Dr. Lane Norton and some others have no problem teaching their community that it's okay to eat donuts and Twinkies and burgers and ice cream and whatever other hyper palatable, highly processed synthetic food-like substances. I don't believe in that. I don't teach that. We won't teach that. We want you to be at your best. We believe in optimizing your health, optimizing your nutrition, and optimizing the quality of your food. In no other industry does it seem that experts so openly teach you to eat inferior products. It's like when you go to buy a new car, are you looking for the superior automobile or an inferior automobile? When you go to the doctor, do you want the superior cardiologist or an inferior cardiologist? When you buy a parachute, do you want the superior parachute or an inferior parachute? Why then would an expert suggest any human consume inferior nutrition sources? That doesn't make sense to me. I know because humans are highly emotional, and I know because many humans are lazy, and I know because many humans feel entitled, and I know because it is very easy to sell a program that tells humans that they can eat cookies and Coca-Cola and have some alcohol on the weekends. Well, that's an easy program to sell. Hell, sign me up. But it's not honest in our opinion. Now, why people do that, or why I have some thoughts is why do they do that? Of course, I certainly don't believe in that. So let me wrap this up, clean this up, and then let you decide. When it comes to fat loss, optimal long-term sustainable fat loss that has immediate and dramatic impact, the way to do it, number one, is to eat high net nutrient, healthful whole foods in wide varieties, maximizing nutrition per calorie consumed. High net nutrient, healthful whole foods have more micronutrients and phytochemicals per calorie than hyperpalatable, highly processed synthetic foods. That's a fact. Nobody argues with that. Therefore, the more high net nutrient, healthful whole foods we consume, the less total calories we actually have to consume to fulfill our micronutrient allotment. That right there allows us to eat less total calories per day while maximizing our nutrition because we've wiped away the hyperpalatable, highly processed synthetic foods that are very common in most nutrition plans. That's why I always speak about this. How many times have I said high net nutrient, healthful whole foods in this 10-minute video alone? I say that, I probably use that phrase 1,000 times a day, every single day. My dog could repeat that same phrase because that is the cornerstone of our program. From there, we're looking to increase total calories consumed from high net nutrient, healthful whole foods. So now we can provide energy to the muscles. We can provide all the necessary nutrients to maintain muscle mass, to build muscle mass, to fuel muscular activity, which then allows us to build more muscle tissue, which increases our metabolic rate, which as a byproduct burns body fat. So we don't look to go hypocalorie on our initial fat loss plans. We look to go hypercalorie from the right foods, but then to create a deficit, we will suggest forms of cardiovascular activity. Number one is LISS. Low intensity, steady state cardiovascular activity should be performed a minimum of 30 minutes per day, 365 days per year by every bipedal organism able to do so. And likely that is you. Humans were designed not very well with regards to our strength, with regards to our speed, but something we do extremely well, biologically speaking, is we can walk really far distances at really slow paces. And this should be embraced because all the literature supports 30 minutes of low intensity exercise per day has a dramatic impact, not just on our physical well-being, but also our emotional and psychological well-being, as well as our digestive well-being. And yes, our ability to maintain, build lean, healthy, functional muscle tissue and to metabolize stored body fat. We do suggest you perform your list while fasted because as Dr. Andrew Huberman recently supported our thesis that low intensity, steady state cardiovascular activity in a fasted state or in the absence of insulin has a greater and more preferential ability to burn stored body fat specific to the stubborn areas of body fat. And this is due to a relationship between the alpha and beta receptors with regards to circulating insulin. And we know everything else you do throughout the day will be in a fed state, or there will be levels of circulating insulin. So why not take the one chance you have and throw a little bit of fasted list in there first thing in the morning when everything else you do throughout the day will be in a mildly fed state. From there, we can start playing with the type of cardiovascular activity. Like my good friend Stan Efferding says, start adding in the 10-minute walks after meal to mediate insulin production, which is in line with what Dr. Mike had said regarding NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, what NEAT is, it's basically me sitting here right now using my hands. I'm burning more calories doing this than if I just sat here like this. Well, those 10-minute walks from what Stan talks about, and his primary thesis is the reduction or the mediation of circulating insulin, which is correct, but also it helps chip away into your caloric deficit. Throwing 10 minutes of walking after 6 meals, well, that's an extra hour of low intensity, steady state cardiovascular activity performed throughout your day. Now, if you add 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes of cardio after your glycolytic high intensity HIRT training, which is high intensity resistance training, you throw in a little bit of low intensity cardiovascular activity after that, well, now we're burning even more body fat. There are amazing ways to slowly layer in cardiovascular activity relative to your goals, relative to your ability, relative to the time of year and even the season. So now let me close this. I'm talking a lot here, and I've probably been off topic like 7 times. I apologize. So are the Mind Pump boys wrong? No, they're not wrong. Is Dr. Mike wrong? No, they're not wrong. Am I wrong? Definitely not. I'm not wrong. So we all have a different approach, and I just wanted to share my reasons for this and let you guys really chew on it. I think that's it. If you have any questions, please leave them below. I'll throw a link to the Mind Pump conversation and to Dr. Mike, so you can go back and take a look at that stuff. If you have any further questions for me, please leave them below. Bang, bang. You know what to do here. Subscribe to the channel. And until next time, whoa.